Not again.
How? Again? Again? What's again?
Hello, welcome to the Exploding Appendix podcast. This is episode 48, Defending Arts and Culture in Brighton and Hove, part 4. Focusing on the London Road area with special guests Jenny Staff, Lucy Jefferies, Susie Deadman, and Kasia, aka Bunty.
So this is, I think it's actually technically the fourth session we've done on sort of defending art and culture in Brighton, in the hope that kind of keep some of these conversations going. But yeah, I'll start in with the first question. One of the things that I find really exciting about all your different projects is that they're all sort of invested in fostering sort of creativity and respond to the community around London Road. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your organisations and how they relate to London Road?
I'm Lucy. I am the director of Quiet Down There. We are a charity. We're based in Brighton Open Market. I actually have been working on London Road for about 20 years, creatively in different roles. Quiet Down There have been in the market for about 6 or 7 years. And most recently, we opened our Wash and Create space, which is a free laundry where you can rock up and you can do a free wash and dry, and then you can do a creative activity while you're waiting. And you can also do lots of other things as well. It's a kind of a warm, practical space with a kind of creative bent. And I'm super interested in London Road. Like, it changes, but it also really stays the same. I'm really interested in the idea of like just maybe changing the conversation about London Road. So not that it's never reached its potential, but actually really looking at what it does well and who it does serve, and sort of celebrating that instead of, there's often the conversation around it's never quite done what people hoped it would.
Hello, I'm Kasia. I'm a musician and artist, like with a background in DIY kind of events and working like as collective and stuff for like the last 20 years, like mainly in Brighton, but in London also. Yeah, with a background and interest in basically music and community. So I've worked on lots of different community projects in the past. And then in the last 8 years, we've got this space that we run called the Rose Hill. That's like, it was an old pub that is now a live music venue and studios and a workshop space, like a little art centre and community centre, and a couple of record labels and like indie labels run from there as well. Yeah, so we're based just off London Road. I've always loved London Road. London Road's always had, I don't know, I really loved London Road from when I've lived in Brighton for maybe it's 25 years now. I just always thought London Road was vibey and cool. It's got so much going on. It's got so many different like shops and people and smells and tastes and sounds. And it's like a really vibrant high street, I think. Yeah, like you say, there's loads to be celebrated.
So my name's Jenny Staff. I'm an artist and an educator and a facilitator. And I've been at Phoenix Art Space with the studio there for, I can never remember how long. I always say 4 years, but it must be about 12 now, I think. And I've been working with Phoenix for a long time to kind of bring the people, especially the people who live behind Phoenix Art Gallery. And for a lot of people don't actually know where it is. It looks like part of the university on the other side of the level from London Road. But we've got lots of gallery space, we've got lots of workshops, but a lot of the people that live right behind us on the estates don't access what we've got to offer. So we've spent an awful long time building up different groups, especially with families, so that the people who actually live on or very close to London Road and part of that area are able to access us, and we're able to access them, and we can have an exchange, which I think is really important, because it's so disturbing when there's an arts organisation in somewhere but it's not embedded, and then kind of trying to get people's trust to come in is a really long, slow, tricky process, and you just have to be really dedicated to it. But then all these lovely things come out of it, and people start to use our space, and we start to understand what's going on around us. So we don't have this split of people who think culture is for them and people who don't.
I'm Susie. So I set up So Fabulous 11 years ago, and we've been based in Brighton Open Market for the last 10 years on the balcony, right down there. We're a sustainable sewing and textile studio, and we run weekly classes. We run like 7 kids and teens classes a week, like about 3 or 4 adults classes, and then we do a lot of kind of outreach projects as well. I'm also part of Brighton Fashion Collective, who produces Sustainable Fashion Week Brighton, so we've done that for the last 2 years. Our work is really about, but our kind of 3 words that we use about ourselves are sustainable, community, education, and really that's what we're doing, that's our focus. I love London Road too. I just think it's such a great place. It has its fair share of social problems, and there's some stuff that goes on that's not that great to be around, but it really does feel like a diverse area in a very kind of undiverse town. And I really love that. I love all the different kind of people that we get to work with in the open market. All of the businesses are run, it is really interesting, and it's sort of a community that rubs along fairly well together. So big fan of London Road.
Sean Shapiro argues that to foster and support and safeguard music, we need intentionally to recognise music as an ecosystem and plan for it. The Rose Hill seems to sort of embody this idea, crossing boundaries as a music venue, studio space, and hosting like numerous record labels. How do you see your work at the Rose Hill connecting with the diverse ecosystem of London Road? And what steps do you think we can take to foster and celebrate this diversity more effectively?
So for us, one of the things, especially since the Black Lives Matter movement, it just became really apparent that actually we needed to really focus on diversity, just looking at our Instagram feed and who was performing and who was being put in charge of curating things. And so we just took a really active role in dedicating time and energy to diversifying our audience in a very just proactive way, which it actually, once we started doing it actually wasn't very complicated at all. It was just things like making sure that there's representation basically of the people that are performing, and then people see themselves in what is being programmed, and then that attracts that audience. And also I think once we got the ball rolling of dedicating and kind of having that in our consciousness and kind of actively trying to change that, it sort of changed almost on its own. It's very much sort of snowballed into just, lots of different, basically the audience has diversified. And I guess now I'm kind of interested in how, and it's kind of happening a bit on its own anyway, how those audiences can kind of merge together, because there's there's lots of different things that happen at the Rose Hill. So there's these 2 programs at the moment that are running. One's called Queer Joy, that's run by a queer woman who is, she's organised a series of events. So that's music and poetry, and the next one's cabaret. And then there's this other series called Reshape Sound that's just specifically focusing on championing Black and brown experimental artists, because that's I didn't say before, but mainly the things that we put on is with a focus on experimental work, apart from if it's a community thing, and then it can just be whatever they want. And it's kind of those 2 things, kind of cutting edge stuff, and then also just stuff that supports the community, because that's just a great thing to happen. And then basically Brighton is filled with people doing really cool community things. There's this group called Jollof Cafe that serve local refugees, that run loads of great events, and they put on a sort of DJ night that was really amazing, and all of those people came. And then there's another amazing community group called Food, and the whole idea is that local Ukrainians can kind of mix with local Brightonians, and everyone kind of get to know each other. They feel more at home, and everyone else feels like they're gaining some sort of cultural joy from Ukrainian culture. And so, and also I think it's London Road's really good that, because they're just, like you said, that it just is a really diverse place with lots of stuff happening. And so a lot of what we've been doing is not even, we have been doing stuff, but a lot of it is just having the privilege of having a space where people that know that they can come and take over that space, basically. So a lot of it is just saying yes, really. And then through saying yes, it's just kind of growing bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know if any of you know, but Mohammed, I only know him as Mohammed Spice of Life, but he's the mayor of Brighton now, and we've been chatting about, it's been like a year and a half, like even before he became mayor, about putting on a multicultural festival, like the Level, like a free festival. And that could be really cool for like London. Maybe we're thinking like for like food stalls and having like a stage there. So it's like a family friendly thing and just really celebrating what's basically already there in a similar way of like creating a space and then just saying yes to lots of things happening and kind of these worlds kind of colliding. And also just one more thing about with the experimental stuff also that we've been really trying to do is like, which it takes a long time and we don't always do it perfectly, but it's kind of an aim is like the way things are spoken about, like the language that's used around art and the language that's used around like experimental like stuff like performance music. I think like so much of the language basically creates these barriers so people just don't get what you're fucking talking about. So they're like, well, that's not for us then. So we've been really working at like demystifying like what is going to be happening at the Rose Hall. So like when someone looks at the website, they're not like, I don't get it. Like when you get like descriptions from musicians or artists that you know are describing their work, they'll send something over and almost like the language that's used is almost like art in itself. It's like poetry. It's beautiful. Like I love it. I love that kind of writing. But I think for a lot of people that can be a real barrier and it can actually stop people engaging with something that they could really get down with, especially if they didn't feel like it was all sort of super serious. Like a lot of experimental music is really funny and sort of like, it's not like you're supposed to be understanding something really clever. It's actually just really playful and it's experimental. It's an experiment. That's another thing that we've been sort of doing, which I suppose is linked to diversity because it's like inviting other people that wouldn't necessarily access experimental work to feel like they can come and enjoy it or like see what it's like. Yeah. And it's sort of happening because people are like into the Rose Hill. There's a lot of love and support for the Rose Hill. So people will just rock up not knowing what it is and then be like, so yeah, it's a work in progress. But
experimenting in itself, if it's done in a particular way, is something that can be really inclusive.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a way of playing.
Yeah. I think it's like there's just a lot of work to be done about sort of demystifying it and people not thinking that it's like super clever and intellectual the whole time. Because often sometimes it is, and that's fine and good, but also it isn't always that. And also like if you go to uni, it's like you're basically programmed to write in that way. Otherwise you don't get like the grade that you're supposed to get, or, you know, there is a whole, it's a big topic, isn't it? The language that's used around art, like, and serious art as well. Yeah. A lot of art is serious and that's good too, right? I guess everyone's just working at ways to communicate better, right? And also maybe what I did a bit of on the website was like, sometimes I would write the thing that they'd said and then just be like, literally like kind of unpick it and go like, what they mean by that is this. Or like, you know, when people put like a lot of references in their work, like to do with things, then like just linking that shit up so that people can like click on it. So if they don't know what that is, they can click on it and it just literally goes to Wikipedia, like with like weird instruments or, you know, strange concepts or like, I don't know, just kind of experimenting and trying to find ways to explain it or communicate.
I heard this term the other day and it was midbrow. And I don't know if anyone's heard that term, midbrow. It was about a film. Films, there is a whole genre of films now that are midbrow. And it's like in between highbrow and lowbrow, essentially. I just found that so interesting because what they were saying is midbrow means it's really good quality. It's interesting. It's accessible. Like that was the definition of it. And I was like, I feel like we've been reaching that definition for like 15 years. And it felt like something was just like, wow, that's an amazing articulation of something. It's so simple. But yeah, I particularly like in the visual arts, you know, I mean, obviously we don't call things highbrow and lowbrow, but we all sort of know that things are labeled in that way. And then to suddenly have like a mid version, anyway, that just really blew my mind. I was like, that's really interesting. That's something I'd be really interested in thinking about. Not just in film, like across the board, how that could help us like articulate and shape our work.
I think it's hard because there's also this way in which you can sometimes risk losing meaning as well when you try to. It's getting that balance, isn't it?
I also think maybe there doesn't need, I think I just said it before, but like in a clearer way, like maybe there also doesn't just need to be one explanation. Like maybe there can be an explanation and then there can be an explanation of the explanation. And maybe an explanation of that explanation for whoever can be asked to read that much. Like, I don't know.
Because we're all using different language.
Yeah.
Even if you go into different circles, people have different sort of So
Yeah.
it's sort of, it's how do you cross over those different ways in which we all talk in our own different groups.
People want to be able to, like, there's all these amazing words in the English language, right? And that some people want to be able to use those words that like articulate this thing perfectly. And so it's like, you don't want people to not be able to use really great language just because not everyone's going to understand that language. But then I guess there needs to be more there for someone that doesn't know what those words mean.
Jenny, your approach to creativity emphasizes the importance as play as process. How does this philosophy shape the way you engage families in the London Road area? And what impact do you think this has on fostering creativity within the community?
Well, I think the playful approach goes back to a lot of what you were saying, and just having the privilege of space or some resources, which is what we do have at Phoenix. So we've got these resources, we've got funding, we've got space to make things or to offer up, and then to make it playful so that it's not threatening. Like we were talking about the language. But this is a lot of this work that I do is really practical. So engaging, we've got a big program of work that we've done, engaging with families with whatever's on in the gallery, because we really recognised that people weren't coming into the gallery, or families weren't coming into the gallery to have a look. So we wanted to be able to, just break down those barriers of, a gallery isn't for me and it's not right for my kids and they're not allowed in there. And I do that work all over, but especially where my studio is, that's really important to welcome people and to make that possible. And then that kind of has grown over time into working with what was a food bank and is now a community supermarket in the Phoenix Community Centre just behind us. And we send out lots of art packs through there, and we run workshops through there with families. But it's all about creating a space to play, and it's very, very much about trust. So it's about having something where there is no right or wrong. So it's come and see, I've got an offer for you. It's based around this, but actually, if you just want to take the materials and create something totally different, that's also fine. Yeah. Nothing is, if it doesn't look like that, you're all wrong. And, that whole national curriculum misery of art education, it's trying to break that down and go, actually, this is what creativity really is. This is what artists do. They play, they experiment, they have absolute disasters, they have elements of chance, they have great moments, and then they also just enjoy it occasionally when they're doing it. But it's being able to offer that space. And I think that then supports people to come. So we go out and we do that, and we send that out into the communities around us. And then we have spaces, then we create things within the gallery to say, well, if you did enjoy that, you could come in and have a go here. And we're getting more and more of our really local families coming into the building. And that's amazing, because you get, as you do in all art galleries and in all those venues, you get a certain demographic who bring their children to the family events. And that's great. And of course, everybody can come. But you're serving your mid-brow demographic, I would say, who go, this will be lovely and that'll be great, and I feel very comfortable going into a gallery. Well, yeah, that's great, but actually these are spaces for everybody. So I'm really, really passionate about creating welcomings for people and creating things that are playful. And don't worry. And if you've got, people are scared because they've got lots of kids, or they've got children who are neurodivergent, or whatever's going on. And it's just no, it's fine. Come in. We'll just come in and play. And I think that community thing, we've grown a lot now with the Residents Association, and we work a lot with them. There's an awful lot of behind the scenes stuff that personally I don't do. Chloe does that in Phoenix, but I do a lot of the outreach work. So I have the great pleasure of working with people and building those relationships and creating those little sparkly moments. And those are the things that I find really exciting, because you can see children and their grown-ups, because the grown-ups get going. I really encourage the grown-ups to make as well, because it's good for us all.
Yeah.
It's really good for us all. It's a great thing to do together. And it just kind of fosters that communication. Like you were talking about before, it's all those things where you actually do something together off screen, which is a big thing. And pretty much everything that I do with people, it's all recycled stuff. It's donated stuff. We don't have fancy tools. We don't have anything that's really expensive. So you can go home and recreate it. And for me, that's really important. So if there's something that somebody enjoys, go home, keep making. You've done it with your grown up. They see it's not so scary. It's, we've got carpet everywhere in the space in the community centre. So it's all pretty dry. So that also makes people more comfortable. You can come into the studios to make mess. But it's just the idea of boosting people's creativity and asking questions and experimenting. And from those little things, then you get the musicians and the artists and the designers and you get the creatives of the future. But if we don't allow people to do that now, it's huge. And I think in London Road, where there's a huge amount of deprivation, and it's not like we're going to solve everything throughout, but we can make things better and we can give hope and we can give people some inspiration. And I think, that's the thing I'm really passionate about. I think it's that space. It's having that space to play.
I don't see the international students in the market ever, although I'm not there all the time. I know that student accommodation that's very close to the market, I think there are a lot of international students that live there. But yeah, I have often wondered why they don't come into the market, even just for like the food. So there definitely there's a disconnect there. I don't know. Kasia, do you have international students come?
A little bit. I think people, a bit. It's in a very accidental, stumbling across and just stumbling in. We've had a bit, but yeah, that's interesting because that is a whole demographic that I think are sort of doing their own thing. Are they even just maybe in their dorms, on their phones? I'm wondering. I don't know. Kind of just doing stuff in those buildings.
Okay, I'm Philip Wells. I'm the chair of the London Road Area Local Action Team. I used to be a student in the 1970s living in London Road and have stayed there ever since, which shows a remarkable lack of imagination, I always think. I've been chairing the London Road Local Action Team since about 2009, and just say what a privilege it is to see you folk standing up for the art side of London Road and London Road itself. I think that's absolutely great and totally appreciate that. The question about the international students, I'm also one of the ministers of the church, the Calvary Church, top end of London Road, and have been there since the 1970s. We do pick up international students, and some of them are very isolated. And as Kasia was suggesting, sometimes they're stuck within their own ethnic group. They might not be ever so good at English, particularly if they've just come over here for the first time. And I really feel for them. It's very difficult to reach out in the sense that the purpose-built student accommodation, you can't easily get past the reception. And it is a sizable community. I mean, there are layers of community across London Road, aren't there? You were saying the families, people with particular needs, people actually quite wealthy. And of course, students is one of those layers. So it's a question to which I don't really have an answer, but perhaps it just becomes a comment that there is a sizable population there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That we would like to reach out to.
Oh, it's so close. A lot of those accommodations are literally within they're a stone's throw away. So I don't know, something that I can just think of that's just something that I literally could do is to just go in and talk to the people on the desk, and because we have monthly listings, flyers sort of thing, and just kind of, I don't know, leave them there and see if anyone's interested in it. Or also I wonder who sort of, they must have people that communicate with them en masse about other things, probably to do with the the accommodation and the building and stuff like that. And I wonder whether those people could be like a vehicle for also sharing like cultural information with them of stuff that they might enjoy that's happening just around the corner or whatever.
I think it does depend on who that person is in each of those particular blocks. The abacus, I'm not sure whether it's called that now. The guy who started off as the manager or liaison was very open, and we took some carol singers round, and that was all very positive. And it does depend on that particular person being there, because the successor was much less amenable.
I'm sure there's ways to reach those people. I guess it's doing a bit of research or whatever as to how to reach those people, right? There's going to be ways to reach them on another level. Like also, but what an interesting bunch of people as well. Like, because like all the people that have just this load of young people, especially like think of like how like there's so many Chinese students that are like we just don't even know anything about. Like we just hear these tales of China, right? That would be such an interesting exchange of like, okay, well, you're literally from there. All we hear is how completely it's like this other world that is nothing like what we have here, and interesting conversations of like understandings to happen, isn't there?
Yes. So do you think that one of the reasons you might not be engaging with that particular audience or other audiences that exist around the London Road is because of how your organisations or your programmes are funded?
I just think it's a lot of work to engage people. It's a huge job to do that. And I think we're all running these small little projects that are all labours of love. And we're just limited by kind of human capacity. It's just, obviously funding does come into it, but it's just about how much you can get done in a day and all the other stuff that you just have to get done. I don't think it's for that we don't want to reach all the specific groups. It's like what Jenny was talking about, the amount of effort that it's taken to start building those relationships. And the issue you have with students is I had a Taiwanese student staying in my house for like 4 months, and then she was gone again. Sometimes, or people here for maybe an undergraduate degree or whatever, because it takes so much time. Sometimes they've come and gone before you've even really kind of known them. That's my personal opinion. We just have only got a few hours every day. It's quite a lot of work.
And I guess like part of what I hope this conversation is the start of is an idea of like, actually, how could we do that much easier together? So like if you're doing a flyer drop, or if one of us is doing a flyer drop, we can drop flyers for all of us, and there will be ways. And I totally get what you're saying about resources and small organizations. But, this is one of the things that's really exciting about the fact that we all have the same aims in mind, partly, is so that we can find opportunities to do stuff like that. There used to be, so Helen Medland used to do a tour for new students of all the cultural venues in the city, but that was years ago. And I think stuff like that's just completely fallen off the agenda for the universities. But do a tour of London Road for new students. Do that as part of Freshers Week. The guy, the guy that always does the tours, I can't remember his name. Or maybe not him, but Jeffrey Mead, there you go. Yeah, to do because people need to be shown where something is. They need to see it with their eyes. They need to go in just once, and then they will go back.
I think what you were doing, Jenny, was that you were connecting with something that people might be using already, which sort of links with some of the stuff that Lucy does. Communities.
It's a community supermarket now. And so that's how it's really worked. And this relationship has been built up with the woman who's kind of runs that. And this has been ongoing for 10 years now, how we work in partnership with them. We're doing more and more. They've set up a group for the over 50s who are suffering really badly from loneliness and isolation. So then we do a monthly thing when there's different artists who go in and do a different technique. So all these things are growing, but that's the problem with the students, is that it takes so much time. And if your contact on the other side changes, and there's so many cuts now and all that kind of thing, people are shifting jobs all the time. As soon as that goes, you're kind of back to square one, really, because you need somebody with a huge amount of will an extra energy, like you were talking about, to go and have a lot more conversations and put that time in. But yeah, making those connections with people who are really solid there, and then you build out, which is why we can do this now.
Does such a fabulous job integrating sustainability within its community work, from after school classes to sort of DIY mending sessions, to party clothes swaps, not to mention your involvement with Sustainable Fashion Week. With these diverse activities in mind, how do ideas of sustainability shape the way you engage with the community? And in turn, how does your work with the community influence your understanding of and practice of sustainability?
It's a kind of two-part question, really. In terms of sustainability, it's the underpinning of everything that we do at the studio. It's something that I'm really passionate about and always have been. So we teach people to sew and to make their own clothes. We teach about 40 kids a week from our really tiny little space. And when you teach somebody to make a garment, when they make an item of clothing and then they wear it, they know how much work that goes into making that. So if you've made a sweatshirt, for example, for a child, it might take them, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that to make it. They have a really, incredible understanding of the work that goes into doing that. And I think that changes their outlook on clothing. They cannot see clothing as being a disposable item when they know how much effort it takes to go towards making it. And I think it changes your attitude to clothing when because you can't make clothes with a machine. Some little bits can be mechanized, but basically it's people sat there sewing. Yeah, so I think when you teach people to make something like that as well, it has a knock-on effect of also being able to, it moves you from being a passive consumer to being in a more active role in your own life. And I think it has a knock-on effect on being able to, fix something else, for example, or cook a meal or grow a plant or whatever it is. It's these things. It starts to make us, more in charge of our own lives, I think, really. So, yeah, at the studio, we take a lot of materials in that are we get donations, we get sort of rolls of fabric given to us, just give me a huge pile of jeans that I can take back to the studio that we work with. So we try not to buy too much new fabric, basically. People obviously do have to buy stuff, and we'll direct them to more sustainable choices, but it's such a small amount of stuff. And then with the stuff that we don't use, so with our smallest offcuts and stuff like that, we teach people how to recycle those. So there's a scheme in Brighton. If you put clothing or fabric scraps into the donation bins, they'll all get the clothing will be sold, and the money goes to the council to support community projects. And the little scraps and little bits that we produce get shredded and made into other stuff like car bumpers and pencils and really random stuff like that. We teach a lot of mending at the studio. So we run like a Friday drop-in so people can come and repair their clothes. That's a donation-based or free session. So that's for everybody, which we're always trying to get the word out. Sometimes it's really busy. Sometimes it's like 1 or 2 people there. So if you ever want to mend your clothes, come on a Friday. Yeah, and we're kind of like funded, sort of part funded, I guess, by charitable kind of funding, and then we kind of earn half of our income. But a lot of our work around sustainability, I think now it's to the sort of second part of your question, is this like positive feedback loop that we get. When we started doing this, sustainability was in a really different place. So we felt like we were, saying stuff to people that they weren't really hearing, or they weren't really that open to hearing. It seemed a little bit wacky at the time, like 10 years ago, but things have really moved now. And one of the big things we noticed with Sustainable Fashion Week, so I'm in Brighton Fashion Collective alongside Maren, who's sat over there. When we put on the first Sustainable Fashion Week last year in Brighton, we didn't really have any idea who would come and how it would go. And it was massive. It was absolutely huge. And I think what we're learning is just people are so ready for this now. They really want to find sustainable solutions. And for us, it's all about practical stuff. It's about how people can do stuff themselves. I think the figures and the facts and the huge campaigns and stuff are really, really interesting. But for us, it's very much about on the ground, what you can do as an individual. And it's not to say that it's your fault as an individual that there's a climate crisis and that manufacturing is so unethical and stuff like that. We need to be able to do things. It makes us feel empowered. And I think that's one of the big parts of running Sustainable Fashion Week. It's the right time. It's ready. We're just literally pushing at an open door. And I think that's why it's working so well and why I think it's just going to get bigger, because people are just fully ready for this now. Yeah, so our students come from the local area and from further afield. We have a sliding payment scale. So if somebody's on a low income and we don't ask for proof, they can just tell us that they're on a low income, they'll just get an immediate discount, which we hope just goes a little bit of a way to trying to make people be able to access stuff like that. We run a lot of funded things as well when we've got the money. So then we'll run things for people on a low income. It will be like mending courses for 6 weeks sort of blocks, teaching skills like that. And then what we're trying to do with those courses, we try and teach people skills that they can then pass on, because it's about trying to cascade this sort of info outwards so that it spreads basically. And then we have the Friday drop-in, which is like donation or free, which I think is hopefully makes it more accessible for people in the local area. It's tricky because we have overheads, and this is one of the massive things, you know, like there's so much that we want to do. We just need to get the money in to pay for it, basically.
When you say things are funded, who are they funded by?
Well, I know that there's a funding question coming up, so I'm not going to tread on the toes of that. Maybe I'll leave that one. We get a bit of money from Brighton Council, National Lottery, and then small sort of trusts, Sussex Community Foundation.
Can go on to the funding question,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I really admire how Quiet Down There combines so practical, ensuring everyone has access to clean laundry, with fostering creativity in everyday spaces. The fact that Harriet's Press is named after Harriet Cowley, who also worked in a laundry and was involved in workers' struggles, gives it a kind of a rich and meaningful history. With that in mind, how does a creative project like Harriet's Press get off the ground and find funding, especially in the challenging economic climate we face today?
I think I said before, so Quiet Down There is the charity. Harriet's Press is the laundry project. Although now we're probably 80% Harriet's Press and 20% other things, but that's slowly evolved over the last 3 years since we started the laundry project. I mean, what's happened for us really is that we got a lot of our funding from art and also from the council. Then like very slowly that funding kind of dried up. So the funding that's specifically for the arts and the creative activity, you know, when we started in 2016, Arts Council actually gave us a grant to start the organisation. And then I think, you know, we pretty much got funding from them for the first few years. But then pre-COVID, really, it was getting harder and harder to get funding for purely artistic projects, I would say. So during COVID, we started the laundry, partly because we'd seen a rise in hygiene poverty in London Road area, and partly because some partners that we had, so the school, for example, had also mentioned that they'd seen a rise in hygiene poverty in children. And so we got some domestic machines and stuck them in the studio. We just paid for them ourselves. And we started just offering people to come and do a wash and then do something creative while they waited. It was really slow at the beginning, and it's taken a long time to build up, and it's built up really organically. But through that time, in terms of funding, what we've been able to do, which actually wasn't part of the original plan, so I can't take credit for this, but we've actually been able to get funding from different streams. So we do get funding for arts and culture, but we also get funding from community development. We get funding for poverty relief. We get funding for work that's specifically for families, because we have a lot of families that use the laundry. We get funding for work for older people, because we have older people that use the laundry. And then the other thing we've done, which is partly inspired by Susie and her work is that the machines are like the most eco-efficient machines on the market. We only use laundry sheets. We don't use any chemicals in any of the laundry products that we offer. So we also get funding from environmental based charities as well. So essentially, and we became a charity. So that's been a massive thing for us. So we started, those are our machines. These aren't our machines. These are cardboard machines that we made for an exhibition, but they are very lovely. The market have still got those, actually. Yeah, we became a charity. So we started as a CIC, which I think Kasia and Susie, you're both CICs, aren't you? Yeah, which is a community interest company, which most of you probably know already that about community interest companies. But in 2022, we did get some cultural, what was it called? The Arts Council Fund, Cultural Recovery Fund. There you go. And through that, we became a charity, a registered charity. You know, it opens the doors to all those like trusts and foundations that I often describe as like, they're a bit like the beans that are in the back of the cupboard. And you sort of open the cupboard and you're like, oh yeah, there's that kind of beans. Some of them are really proactive. And actually, we've had so many visits to the laundry from trusts and foundations, and we've never had a funder set foot in the laundry before. Particularly the local ones are really proactive, aren't they? So yeah, becoming a charity has been really, really key to us. I mean, and we're still not, we're still project funded. We don't have any core funding. So we're still hustling all the time. But the hustle gets easier for us, or it has gotten easier, I would say, recently.
Because you're offering something that's not just art. Is that art properly?
Yeah, so it's all arts led, I would say. So Saj sat there, does all the comes up with all the creative activities. They change every week. That's incredibly intensive when you're open most weeks of the year. So Saj spends all her time thinking about activities. We raised money for the materials, but it isn't a lot of money. But it's all arts led. So we always say that you come to the laundry because you need to do your laundry, but actually it's what happens when you're in the laundry space. That's the really important bit. So what's brilliant is that you go away with clean washing, which is a bonus. But actually, it's when you're in the space and you do the creative activity, and you might meet someone who lives on your street and you have a hot drink, and Emily only has nice biscuits. They've got a no shit biscuit policy. That's really important, and it's the contact and the creative activity that builds resilience in people, which keeps people coming back again and again, I think.
So Philip is asking about funding. Just thinking of the London Road, forgotten the name. The theatre was great, but as it seems, it faltered in terms of sustainable business model. Is this something that the panel could comment on?
Emporium, the theatre that was at the back. Did the theatre fail, or the whole thing failed? It's a massive space. I have no idea how Dice Saloon make that work. Like, it's incredible. I mean, I think, so they've got offices, haven't they? Because I know, Sam, you've worked there. They've got office space upstairs. But yeah, it's a massive space.
That was such a shame that closed down, because it was really small theatre space. I sewed for them, so they did pantos, and they decided to
my kids were in pantos.
Were they?
Yes. Yeah,
oh, okay. So they made we made all the costumes from scratch for their pantos. That's probably why they went under, because it was like the most labour intensive job ever.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know anything about that. I would be very interested to know whether it was that people didn't come, or whether it was the whole space that was not viable.
Yeah, you've got to be careful what you say, because who was running it? I just think that there was like a lack of like vision with how that space was used. Like, as in, they had a bar so they could sell alcohol. That's like a massive plus, but it's like no one, for instance, booked a DJ to play some tunes in there or anything. So like there wasn't really, like, there was the theatre in the back, but I don't think it was like integrated into the whole space, so that it was like an attraction that people would think, oh, I'll pop in there, because it was like an amazing place. Like, it looked beautiful. It served alcohol, which people seem to really want. And yeah, I don't know. I think maybe there was just like a bit of a separation between like just making the whole space work together, because clearly like the theatre was like, that was busy, wasn't it? And that really worked as a theatre, didn't it? Like, when they put things on, it was full, wasn't it? Yeah. So I think it was something to do with the like all the other bits that, like, I don't know, whenever I went in there, I was like, this place is amazing, but like, where's the DJ at?
But also places, because rent is so expensive, you don't get that just grace period of working it out and being open to trying things and then, pivoting. It's just too expensive.
Yeah, like that doesn't really happen anymore, does it? I think in the old days it was like you can have like 6 months, like lowered rent while you build up the thing. Like I doubt they got that.
I did know the people who were running it, and there was a team, and I think there was a business side and there was an artistic side. And you folk have been talking about funding in terms of grants and charity type funding. I think they were working on a more of a business model. I think it just shows the challenge of having a vision and a business model that will work together. I think when they did have both those things in place, it did work. But I think they found it difficult to sustain that coupling. I could say a bit more, but probably won't. I think it's just that was an arts-led regeneration, came under the arts-led regeneration of London Road heading. And I thought it was a great idea. I really loved the pantomimes and obviously the costumes. It just didn't quite have enough to keep it running for one reason or another.
One thing that I do remember that was really cool was they did green eggs. They did green eggs, like from Green Eggs and Ham, like from the Dr. Seuss thing. And so it was basically green eggs. So it was eggs and pesto, which I would never think to put together. That was good. That was really good.
I also remember going in there one day and they decided to do the cereal thing, like the serial killers in London. So it was just like bowls of cereal, like different cereals and a bowl, and you could go but it was like, it's London Road, dude. Like, it's just not going to work. People aren't going to pay £5 for a bowl of cereal. So it did feel like they were trying something different every time you went in.
The open market, home of Quiet Down There, Harriet's Press, and many other shops and businesses, has a rich history. Fueled by working class activism around the 1920s, a time of tough post-war working and living conditions, the open market was conceived. In 1919, unemployed returning soldiers, referred to as barrow boys, tried their best to make ends meet and provide cheap food for their community through selling fruit, veg and other necessary items on Oxford Street, just off London Road. This was then moved to the central Rose Walk on the level. During the early 1920s, the council attempted eviction, and Harry Cowley, local chimney sweep known for his community work and activism, stood up to them alongside the Barrow Boys. This event resulted in the council conceding, and a permanent space was created for vendors in 1926. The open market site we see today is a result of this effort, built as 42 stalls in 1960. Harriet Cowley, wife of Harry, was an equally beneficial figure to the community during this period. A laundress, she worked tirelessly to provide a working space for women, as well as clean laundry for the community. But the history of laundry in Brighton spans beyond the work of Harriet, and we will explore this in more detail at the following locations.
There's lots of amazing projects that are all going on, and like Susie was talking about capacity, but I think it's to move things forward. It's about having a space like this where we can come together and actually be much more efficient with our time and our energy, because we're all human and we all have to pay our own bills, and that's the problem, because we're all trying to make our own lives work as well as do all this really important work. So the more that we can work together as a team, I think that's, we'd already come up with, like, we had a cup of tea when we spoke to you about this earlier, and then we're like, oh, we can do that, and we can do that, and we can. So ideas are not a problem, but it's the capacity, and to make something sustainable. Not only has it got to be environmentally sustainable, it's got to be human sustainable as well. And I think that's one of the problems in arts organisations at the moment is the funding is a nightmare. And so people are doing more and more and more and more things for free and extra. And it's kind of creating a balance, I think, and choosing very carefully where you put your energies and working as smart as we can. I think that's,
Yeah, I think there are things like on the cards as well that will happen eventually, like that have been being discussed and stuff. Like, for instance, I was saying about that multicultural festival. I reckon he's going to at some point, we're going to make that happen. And I think that will bring people together. And that could be something really, really good for Brighton, I think, to have all just something that's, it's a free festival. It means that all the stall owners, all the local businesses and stuff that, may know each other a bit will have an experience of doing something together. Also, just somewhere where people can come and experience music from all different places. That's their culture and other people's culture, just a melding pot. I think that could be really, really beneficial. And it's, in a way, it's weird that hasn't happened in Brighton yet, given how many different communities live in Brighton, and that there's not been a sort of cultural festival in that way that's sort of happened like that. But also, I think there's room for lots of different things to happen, isn't there? For instance, there was discussions a little while ago about doing something that's, I guess, a bit like The Great Escape uses loads of different multi-venues, but connecting up with all the different venues. I'm talking, I guess, from a music perspective, connecting up all the venues in one area and having events that occur that are related, even if that's just once every 2 years or something, because obviously that's a lot of work in itself. But I think that'd be really beneficial as well. Basically, what it means is that just whenever a festival happens, people tend to attend that festival that maybe wouldn't have attended something otherwise. And also people end up finding out about other spaces that they maybe always go to that space, but they didn't know about that space. It just means that people get mixed up a bit more. Don't know whether maybe this is relevant, or maybe I'll just say it anyway in case it is. It's not necessarily about London Road specifically, but one of the projects that we're really dedicated to making happen is, and it will happen just in time, is building a grassroots venues networks. Whenever people come and pass through the Rose Hill, they're always saying, oh, this really reminds me of that place that I've been to. So yeah, for us to do some work around basically connecting up all those grassroots venues, first in the UK, but then literally globally. There are these artist run or DIY spaces all over the world. And people, I don't know whether you guys know this, but for musicians that come to the UK, it's really a hard slog to tour the UK, even to know where to go and also to have a good time while you're doing it. Because it's quite a hard place to tour. If you go to Europe, it's all very, the infrastructure is just a lot better for musicians, just generally. It's all about connecting things up, basically, which is basically what you're doing. So yeah, thanks for putting this on.
And also, I think there's a thing about, when a work happens in a community and it's not building based. I know not all buildings, when a work happens in a community in the way that we do it and in the way that Susie does it, I think there's a danger that once the organization's gone, all the learning's gone and it's lost, and all the skills and the experience and the networks, and there's nowhere for them to go. Whereas sometimes if you have an arts centre, for example, often that learning is passed down just because it has to be, because there's practical things, the memories of the different things that happen continue. But certainly for us, if we went, there wouldn't be that, there's no shadow there really for the work. And so for me, I often think about what's the vessel for holding the knowledge and the networks and the skills and the memories, that we pass on to the next group of people like you, Bradley, who are going to come up and who are going to do that work. And
it's almost like we need some sort of library.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want another website, but it is almost like you need something, or if it's just talking, but there's some intergenerational stuff that needs to happen, even just within the sector, of thinking, where do we put that stuff so that it's safe and that it's there when we need it, a bit like a will, but for a community organization or a group of community organizations.
That's really interesting.
And then how we can pass that down to the people who are going to come up and make the city great once we're gone. Yeah.
I know it's like a really obvious kind of like solution or idea, and it's been done before, but like archiving stuff it's really important, isn't it? And maybe like Brighton Council like would be into some sort of like resource like that people can like build into and put into, like, because we've been like really trying to document like that Reshaped Sound series that I was talking about. So just to remind, like, it's like, so the idea is that it's like spotlighting Black and brown experimental artists in a world that's quite like white male dominated, like the experimental music scene, like, you know, historically, and sort of, the documentation attached to it, although these things are changing. But so we've been trying to like really document that stuff. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of archive that needs to be like a sort of like social art, like, you know, creative archive of just all the amazing stuff that's like happening all the time. And probably what it is it's a bloody funding application, isn't it? For someone who's like passionate about archiving and starting something that's sort of like official, that like can build the Keep. No, the only archive I've known about is that one that's at like the Brighton Dome. Like there's that archive. But what is the Keep then?
As far as I know, the Keep is still happening and still alive, because at the university now there's the library division. The library division is now library, culture and heritage, because it takes in the library, it takes in the Attenborough Centre for contemporary art, and it takes in the Keep, which is the heritage side of things. So as far as I'm aware, it's still going. And for instance, I know that the Mass Observation Archive is based there. It's actually now set up as its own CIO, is based within the Keep. So as far as I'm aware, and that division only started in September, so I'm pretty sure the heritage division has come in with the rest of the division, that it's still going. Yeah, because I think it's a very good, and and it may be worth talking to the university then about something, because obviously, Sussex, you've worked with Sussex Collab already, so that it might be something that they might be able to then, I mean, university have got no money like everybody else, but it might be something that is maybe worthwhile talking to them about in terms of the archives and Keep and Sussex Collab.
Can I come back on what Lucy said and what Kasia said a bit earlier? Kasia was talking, I think, about coordinating events, so that coordination across London Road. I mean, there is a precedent for that, going back to the Porter's Pilot scheme, which Joe Nichols was the manager of. And somebody of you will know Joe. I think, Lucy, you know Joe Nichols, don't you?
I remember the Porter's.
Yeah.
I remember Joe Nichols.
Yeah, well, he was employed 2 days a week, and he managed to initiate quite a number of things and sort of liberate funding sources. And one of the things, I think it was called White Nights. I might be wrong on that, but it was to do with the change of the clock. And when the evenings grew darker, there were sort of light-based events and hospitality-based events. So I know Ollie at Moksha was part of it. And I don't know whether he's there in the audience, because I can't see who's there. He would know there was a coordination of different venues up and down London Road to put on arts-type events marking those darker evenings. So there is a precedent for doing it, but the way it worked was that there was one guy who acted as the glue to make it happen. And I think what we're saying is that is so valuable if there is somebody who can sort of commit and liaise and get things moving. There's a tremendous amount of potential. And I think that feeds back on what Lucy was saying. Stuck in my mind was the idea of glue. Different people doing wonderful things in different places, but it needs some sort of glue to tie them together. And often that glue is a person or a set of relationships. And there's tremendous possibilities with that.
So back in my days when I was in Quiet Down There, we always kind of talked, because I started there, our socials is like, well, we have the market, you know, it's a space where the weather wouldn't affect as much. Obviously, it's very cold, but use the space. I know there are certain dynamics within the market that makes maybe this idea a bit challenging, but for me, it's kind of the basic one. Why don't we just do, and they have this middle section, you know, you have like shops, and then you have a middle section that you can put a stage. And I know it's been done before. For whatever is performance or visual arts, or getting also projects into all the different shops. I know it could be challenging, but yeah, for me, that's the first one, like still in the open market. Yeah, maybe yearly or biannual, we can maybe, because I think the one thing that works is regularity also for people and audiences. So if you know that something is coming, you can build towards that. Obviously, there needs to be some organization on the back end to organize that. But so who makes the decisions of where the money goes?
Well, it depends what money, I guess. Yeah. Sometimes for something like, so are you talking about the Halloween thing that we did? We did a Halloween thing Saj and Emily was there. You remember it, don't you? It was bonkers. There was like 1,000 people in the market. Somebody said at one point. It was absolutely mad. But that was funded by the council. Who are obviously, sometimes it's that sort of thing is easier to get funded by a local organization rather than a national one like Arts Council, because they'll have, a bit more skin in the game in terms of wanting to see stuff locally or being invested in the market, which the council are invested in the market. So the council own the land that the market's on. So they do have some kind of duty to make sure that it thrives, but they are involved. Yeah, they're on the CIC, aren't they? So the market itself is the CIC, confusingly, and they're on the board of directors, the council are. So there's a starting point there. I mean, Hyde own the market, don't they? Hyde also own the community centre where you work as well. Hyde's got they've got a lot of stuff on
Who are they?
They're a housing association. Are they? They're not a charity. Yeah, exactly. So that not like a housing association used to be. Though I think the market's going to be 100 in 2026. So that feels like something to work towards. It's actually coming quite quickly, but yeah, that would be a nice moment if there was going to be something that could maybe be in the market and on the level, and it could be part of that celebration. It's 100 years. Is amazing, isn't it? Like it's been, and I think the Eggman is still there. He's been there since day one. No, but a lot of those traders have been, like, there's been generations, hasn't there, of families running the stall in the market. Yeah, absolutely. And so Harriet obviously Harry and Harriet opened the market together, and Harriet is who the laundry is named after. So there's tons of really interesting stories and history to work with creatively.
Memory, has there ever been anything to kind of, I'm imagining like a bid. So obviously, I mean, I know that there is one in Brighton, but won't pass comment. But in terms of the open market or London Road, having something that was a bit more kind of business focused and centralized, so that you could potentially look at leveraging that little bit of money for programs, possible roles that could kind of start actually helping you guys with some capacity to think about programming events.
So our friend Philip, who action team, London Road action team. I don't know if he's still there. I'm sure he's gone. Okay. It's local area action team. And that is for traders, although I think there are lots of residents on that now as well. And they did. So that thing he was talking about, the Portas scheme, I don't know if you remember when Mary Portas went around the country and gave different people money for high streets, for failing high streets. So the LAP bid for that money, I think in conjunction with the council, I don't know how much it was that they got, but they did get some. And they had this fella who did something for the White Knight. I don't know, I wasn't there.
Older market before the new one was built.
Oh, wow. Okay, so before it was enclosed.
And it was really good, actually. It was like loads of venues around London Road. And it might have gone even into North Lane and a bit of Brighton as well. But it was all just like nighttime events and stuff with like White Night. Yeah, they did it 2 years in a row.
No, it was epic. It wasn't just London Road. It was like all over Brighton. It was like in the swimming pool, in the libraries, and the whole thing. It was all night. London Road.
I remember some stuff happening in the market, definitely, and like it being lit up really nice with like fairy lights and stuff. I can't remember what I went to. But yeah, it was kind of open at night, like unusually. If you know what I mean? Places were open at night in unusual
places were
ways.
open all through the night.
Yeah,
it was through the night,
wasn't it?
through the night.
But it was
they
really
do it
good.
they do it in Paris,
right?
And then I think the funding ran out. But yeah, it went for 2 years. It was epic.
How could we do something without the funding? Is there any ideas that
So saying that the whole sector, hospitality venues, all the live music venues and whatever, they are all absolutely on their knees at the moment. The whole sector. The numbers don't add up anymore. The economy currently, the energy bills and wage bills and everything, cost of everything. That whole sector of our culture and lifestyle is under massive threat currently. And there's a lot of places are going to be shutting down over the next couple of years. Because of that, I think people like you are going to be more and more important to maintaining our culture, fighting tooth and nail at the real grassroots level to maintain arts and culture.
Yeah, like the MVT seem to be doing so much important work to actually change it up on a policy level. So like things like making places. MVT are like the Music Venues Trust. They're doing really good work in basically going to the high level of changing policies around venues and around cultural like institutions or whatever. That things like the Rose Hill got an asset of community value put on it, which is the reason that we could even think about buying it. Because if it hadn't, we wouldn't be able to afford it. And we'd have just been priced out by a developer that would have just like gone, okay, 10 grand more than that. And then just got it, turned it into flats and sold it because that's what they can do. I think there's like work to be done like on that level of like assets of community values being pushed into like those being put on different spaces that mean that they can't just be developed. Like that's one thing. And the other thing is like when we first got the building, I was like really heavily pregnant. My partner does quite a lot of admin in terms of like business admin. I do the admin and he does a lot of the, like paperwork, like the kind of business side of the admin. And one of the things that I did do when I was like really pregnant is like, I was speaking to them on the phone when we first got the building to basically get the building categorization changed, basically. And the way buildings are categorized means that you pay a certain amount of business rates, which is one of the things that literally like screws people is the business rates. And basically, after explaining to them like all the different things that it would be used for, they were like, okay, well, we're classing it's basically, we don't know what to class it as. So we're going to class it as a community centre. You won't pay business rates, which is kind of like partly the only way that we haven't just gone completely like things like that, like little like loopholes like that maybe could be used by other spaces, right? Basically, people would be in a much better position if they weren't paying business rates. Yeah. And maybe if cultural centres are sort of, I don't know, if their sort of like status is maybe slightly changed to make it work for them. And
it's a political thing. Talk to your MP about that.
Yeah.
Been talked this evening about the music venues getting together. The music venues get together all the time.
Yeah, they do.
Very active music venues alliance group I'm involved with, and tapping into the National Venues Trust, all the rest, whatever. And I try and convene a culture venues group of the places that are not necessarily music venues, but arts and culture and all the rest. And, they're all friends of mine, basically. We all talk to each other. And it's dire. It is absolutely dire.
And do you think they could get their business rates slashed?
Talk to Keir Starmer about that or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. What I'm going to say...
Is it definitely not going to happen though?
So it's about activism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I think we have, reinvent and build arts and culture from here.
Space, because actually we're not going to get it as a paid job, which means that...
There's far fewer people are going to be able to earn money from doing...
Well, I've just reading
culture,
from the
hospitality.
The Museums Association kind of report on the budget. So absolutely. So then we need to take it in hand. And I think that's where we're at. So it's not about you saying, okay, so what are us four going to do? It's like, how can I help start something off? So it's about having a space where we do come together and keep coming together.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Exploding Appendix. These sessions are recorded live in Brighton. You can be a part of them. Details are on the website, explodingappendix.com. Exploding Appendix. Exploding Appendix. Bye.
Yeah.